Piraten is the signature attraction at Djurs Sommerland in Denmark. This intimate megalite provides the prototypical thrills and airtime of a hypercoaster, except in a much smaller and more affordable package. I had previously ridden one of these in Kawasemi at Tobu Zoo, and I thought the ride was good, not great. Piraten is an entirely different animal. Find out why in this review. Intamin debuted the megalite roughly 1.5 decades ago. This model is now listed as the Ultra Coaster on their website, but it essentially has the ejector airtime hills Intamin Hypers are known for in a much smaller package. The first and only to go to Europe was Piraten in 2008. The other 4 all exist in Asia. Piraten is located to the right of the main entrance, and it's the anchor of the pirate-themed area. This coaster's great track and first drop really capture your eye from the entry plaza. Then this ride also had more theming than I expected. The queue line is this boxed-in fort with cannons and pirate animatronics. Then you enter through a giant skull to reach the station, which is decked out in pirate paraphernalia. Then the crew are dressed as pirates and excitedly scream at guests to get them amped up for their ride. It really is a great atmosphere for this attraction. Piraten runs 2 trains, each seating 16 riders across 8 rows. Fortunately, the line moves at a reasonable rate because this ride has a pretty fast cycle time, and the operators can check the restraints really quickly. I visited on a summer Saturday, and the line was typically 15 to 20 minutes, and at most I saw it about 30 minutes. The one bugaboo is that the restraints have a super low verify, so this ride is not very accommodating to larger guests. That's the one thing that seemed to slow down some dispatches. The crew will try their best though. I even saw a staff member stand on a restraint at one point to allow one person to ride. Those restraints are your classic Intamin T-bars, similar to the ones on Expedition G-Force or Millennium Force. And I love these lap bars. They leave you extremely open, and they don't really lower any further throughout the attraction, which maximizes your airtime. It's worth noting there's a seatbelt as well, but the limiter for large guests seemed to be the required downmost position on the lap bar. If you want the best ride experience, I'd recommend the back. The airtime was more extreme there. Now this attraction is notorious for needing time to warm up. There was a significant difference between my early morning rides and my afternoon or evening rides. Some hills that had no airtime in the morning went on to launch me from my seat. Others went from pops to more sustained airtime. Make sure you ride this in the second half of the day to experience it at its full potential. And I think this is one of the reasons I much preferred Piraten to Kawasemi. If you're familiar with Tobu Zoo, you know that this park is extremely low attendance. We only saw Kawasemi cycle once in our time at the park without us. We rode it several times, but we were usually the only 2 people on the train. The empty trains and lack of time to warm up did not help this coaster. I've heard Kawasemi can give awesome rides, but you need full trains that are constantly cycling. I clearly did not get that. Meanwhile, you get these conditions almost every day at Djurs Sommerland. Kawasemi also has a noticeably slower cable lift hill. From POVs, Piraten is pulled to the top 25 to 30% faster, which allows the coaster to carry some extra speed through the layout. Speaking of that cable lift, once the restraints are checked, the catch car grabs onto the train, and the operators excitedly scream as you're swiftly pulled out of the station and sent up that 102-foot or 31-meter tall lift. If you look behind you, you get a pretty cool view of the park, but you're being thrown over that 70-degree drop in no time. For such a short train, this drop has an awkwardly large crest, presumably due to the cable lift, so you don't get the ejector airtime you may expect here. In the back, this drop rides similarly to a lot of hypercoasters towards the middle of the train. You get some mild floater airtime. You then rip around a low turn. Now this start reminds me of I-305. While the turn isn't as likely to cause grayouts, it can because it's still very forceful. It's also worth noting this is the one part of the coaster that can have a bit of a shuffle to it. The rest of the ride is glass smooth, as you'd expect from an Intamin mega coaster. You then navigate this giant S-hill underneath the lift. This is one of the elements that changed noticeably throughout the day. On my morning rides, I got 0 airtime in this hill. After the ride ran for a few hours, I got some faint floater airtime up front, and better floater airtime in the back, paired with some solid laterals as you're yanked downwards. But don't worry, Piraten only picks it up from here. Next is a camelback, and yet again, this is a hill that needed time to reach its full potential. My morning rides gave a decent pop of air in the back, and solid semi-sustained ejector up front. By the afternoon, I was getting strong sustained ejector throughout the entire train, but I think this is the one element that does have more power in the front row on the ride. The drop then shoots into a misty tunnel. You then zip around another low and forceful turn. Piraten then enters the best sequence by far, the trio of S-hills. These are some of the most violent airtime hills in the world. It doesn't matter what time of day or where you're sitting, these hills will always deliver. You get absolutely catapulted out of your seat while also being tossed sideways from the laterals. They're especially sweet in the back car, and the second hill is the wildest. You can see it in my POV, but my chest-mounted GoPro refused to stay in place for this part of the ride. The airtime was that extreme. After another decently forceful turn, you zip over back-to-back bunny hills. These hills also improved throughout the day. They only gave pops in the morning, but they were offering semi-sustained airtime by the afternoon. The back car gets decent ejector airtime on both hills, while the front gets weaker ejector airtime. You then hop upwards, giving everyone a quick burst of negative Gs, before rounding a pretty mundane turn. You then bank upwards and dip down to the brakes. This maneuver offers some faint weightlessness if you're in the back, while those up front just get some lateral hang time from the speed loss over the top. You then come to a stop, ending the 2,477 foot or 755 meter long coaster. That's not too much track, but this ride certainly packs in a lot. So, what would I rate Piraten? I would give this coaster an 8.5 out of 10. Morning rides are closer to an 8, while the afternoon rides are more like a 9, so I'm going to split the difference. I cannot emphasize how important it is to let this coaster warm up. The airtime at the start and end is noticeably stronger later in the day. But no matter when you ride, those S-hills in the middle are elite moments that are some of my favorite hills on any coaster. I cannot believe how aggressive they are. While this cannot match Intamin's best hypers, this does manage to top several of them, and I ultimately do think it's the best coaster in Denmark once it's running at its peak. 2 years ago I reviewed Alpina Blitz at Nigloland, which is basically Mack's take on a Megalite. At the time, I say I easily preferred this Mack coaster to Kawasemi, but I needed to ride another Intamin Megalite to determine whose was better. Have my thoughts changed since riding Piraten? Yes. Now I still prefer Alpina Blitz, but it's just by a hair. I mainly prefer that coaster because it's more consistent start to end of the day, and it also is a superior first drop. But both are great rides for their respective parks. It's a bummer the Intamin Megalite didn't catch on more or make its way to America because these are really good coasters. I'm glad Piraten showed me what this model is truly capable of. So those are my thoughts on Piraten at Jers Summerland. What are your thoughts on this Intamin Megalite or any of the others out there? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.